What's going on, New York Giants fans? Welcome back to another video. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification button so you get notified when the live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back once again. So we're going to do Giants in this video, and a lot of people haven't talked about this person, at least at this point in the offseason. He sets the tone of the offense, and no, we're not talking about Daniel Jones. We're talking about Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator. Now, the Giants have added assistants around him to try to shape up the playbook. Freddie Kitchens was promoted to a senior assistant, so he's going to have some more involvement. They've also added a couple of college assistants as well, but that's on the minor but major side of what we're talking about today. So, going back to last season, a lot of people, and I'm speaking in the general perspective as if I wasn't a Giants fan, and then I'll give my opinion. A lot of people disliked Jason Garrett. I'm not going to say hate. I'm not a Yankee fan because I've actually, to be honest with you, and I might regret saying this in about a couple of months, that I've taken Giants fans for granted because Yankee fans sometimes happen to be a lot worse in starting trouble and doing a couple of other things. But that is another video, and I actually might regret saying that. But once again, let's talk about it. So a lot of people did not like what Jason Garrett did in 2020, regardless of the other reasons the offense did not succeed. No Saquon Barkley for 14 weeks of the season. Daniel Jones was out 2 weeks. The weapons that were supposed to be weapons but ended up being role players. Also to note, Evan Ingram dropping balls left and right. And what people blame Jason Garrett for was not using the weapons properly and not using Daniel Jones properly. In their perspective, once again, I will give my opinion in about a minute or so. That reasoning behind Jason Garrett not using them properly and stuff like that is that a lot of people wanted to see what his offense was in terms of like they wanted to see it like it was in Dallas a couple of years ago, going deep, doing this, doing that. But it ended up not being that way. It ended up being, just short routes, reliance on the run game, and when one didn't succeed, the other didn't succeed the first part of the season. The second part of the season, the running game started to pick up. It wasn't Saquon Barkley, it was Dion Lewis. Well, credit Dion Lewis, just a pinch. I mean, I didn't really like him. Alfred Morris and Wayne Gallman. Unfortunately, Wayne Gallman is now with the 49ers. The Giants did not re-sign him, and I'll give my opinion in another video, but I don't know that Wayne Gallman is set up to succeed with how many running backs they have in San Francisco. But the offensive stats last year look like this. 229.6 yards per game. That was 31st. The Jets were last. 189.1 passing yards per game, 29th. And also 110.5 running yards per game. That was 19th. So down the stretch, they actually did a pretty good job. And even before the bye week, you saw a lot of 100-yard games just overall rushing. Now, you didn't see necessarily a 100-yard rusher. That was actually Wayne Gallman once, going back to the Seattle game we won because Colt McCoy really couldn't throw the ball a lot because it's Colt McCoy, it's not Daniel Jones. If I'm not mistaken, Wayne Gallman got 135 yards that game. Shout-outs to him on that. But the Washington game, the second time we faced them, then you go into the Eagles game, then you go into the Bengals game, then you go into a couple more games. The reliance on the run game was, in my opinion, very heavy. Now, the stats won't tell you that necessarily. If you look at the season overall, the Giants had a pass play percentage of 58.7 while a run percentage of 41.3. But down the stretch, definitely there was a bit more reliance. More carries for Gallman and Morris. Dion Lewis, once again, was supposed to be a receiving back out of the backfield, kind of like a third down back. He really wasn't used that way, nor did he succeed when he was set up to. Unfortunately, a couple of fumbles here and there and stuff like that. He just really wasn't great for the Giants, hence why they didn't bring him back. But with that being said, let's look at the weapons in comparison to this year and last year. So, weapons last year, Sterling Shepard, Dante Pettis, C.J. Board, Damian Ratley, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Austin Mack, Caden Smith, Evan Ingram, Levine Toilolo, Saquon Barkley, Wayne Gallman, Alfred Morris, Dion Lewis, and Devonta Freeman. Now I'm going to break down probably each of these guys, not in terms of stats, but what they were supposed to do, what didn't happen, what happened last year. Sterling Shepard was out for a couple of games, but later on in the season, he heated up, and he played very well, especially the last 2 games. He caught, I believe, a total of 2 touchdown passes within the last 2 games, and he also rushed for 1. So I think possibly Kadarius Toney could replace him. If not, both of them could definitely be great pieces in the offense this year. Dante Pettis was brought in. He didn't actually get action till the Ravens game, I believe, and he did very well. Didn't necessarily, have a 100-yard game, but he also caught a touchdown pass from Daniel Jones, which I think was the last touchdown pass of the season for the New York Giants. Then you have C.J. Board, who was supposed to be like a special teamer. I didn't think he would make the roster, but he made the roster. Was featured in and out because of the receiver depth. Also, Damian Ratley, who was in for the first 5 weeks, didn't really do that great. I didn't really like him at all, to be honest with you. It's just, one of those players that didn't really do well in terms of offense. And I don't know. For some reason, he was just an off player. I know many will justify that as well. He ended up getting cut, I believe, after the Cowboys game, so that was a tough break for him. Golden Tate, a lot of people don't like the way Jason Garrett used him. Obviously, the whole controversy about, throw me the ball. Yeah, obviously, we know how that story ended. A year later, he got cut, and, we had more room to sign different players like Galladay and others. Austin Mack, he was a undrafted free agent. He was in that class of receivers that we brought in training camp. Derek Dillon, him, and the other guy, I forget his name, Benjamin Victor, who I wanted to make the roster, but unfortunately he didn't. I believe he is now on the Ravens. Austin Mack, he was a good receiver, definitely a good vertical threat if he got more playing time, but obviously in high leverage situations, he couldn't necessarily be trusted. I know the Ravens game, he had a couple of drops, especially one, I believe, on 3rd down, so that was obviously a tough day for him. Once again, he's an undrafted free agent, and I can't necessarily put my expectations up here with him. With that being said, Darius Slayton, a lot of people were, coming out last year before the season saying, he's going to be the number 1 receiver, this, that, and the other thing. I never thought he was going to be the number 1. What the opposing defenses did was I think they put a safety up top so he couldn't run vertical or post routes or basically get downfield. And he only had 200-yard games, which I believe were the only for the New York Giants in terms of receiving, or at least one receiver. I think Shepard actually got over 100, I think, towards the end of the season. But in terms of Slayton, he only had 200-yard games plus, and, he had a tough season. He had a sophomore slump. Hopefully, he comes back as sort of a role player in the preseason and actually in the regular season. I don't think he'll get cut. I think they like this guy. I just don't think that they used him properly necessarily, and I think he had his own issues as well. With that being said, let's move into the tight ends. Caden Smith wasn't really featured a lot in my personal view in terms of the receiving game like he was the year prior in his rookie year. I really liked what he did towards the end of the 2019 season. Him and Daniel Jones had to be one of the best connections on the team besides him and Darius Slayton, meaning Daniel Jones. But Caden Smith was a good blocker towards the end of the season, hence why the running game spiked up with all the yards and stuff like that. Evan Ingram, we know the story. I'm not going to consider him the weapon for this year or try to hype him up in any such fashion. He has to show me, if anything. I'm not going to say, he's going to have a big season. I'm not going to hype him up. I will root for him when he's on the field. But it just seems silly to hype him up and then get our dreams just stomped on. With that being said, he had 11 drops last year, caused multiple turnovers. Levine Toilolo wasn't necessarily supposed to be the focal point of the offense, obviously. He was supposed to be a blocking tight end and an occasional receiving tight end, so he kind of fulfilled his role. They lowered the cap hit on his contract, so he is back another year competing with the other tight ends on the roster. You move into the running back section. Saquon Barkley, we know the story with him. Barely got any rushing yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wayne Gallman, I believe, got more. He had 15 carries and 6 yards. Obviously, that's not totally his fault, but the offensive line did not do a great job. Wayne Gallman, he was a very good running back last year, very north to south guy running up the middle. I liked him. I thought he was one of my favorite players on this team. I thought he should have stayed, but once again, the Giants thought otherwise, and he is now with the San Francisco 49ers, where he'll probably end up getting more opportunities. I really liked him, though, honestly. Shouts to Wayne Gallman. With that being said, Alfred Morris, he was a one-year rental. He came onto the active roster in the Bucs game after they said Devonta Freeman, he's hurt and everything. He didn't do that bad for the Giants. I thought he did better than Dion Lewis, especially in certain situations. He caught a passing touchdown. I think he rushed for a touchdown as well against the Seattle Seahawks. If not, I'm wrong. But I thought he did very nicely, and he's still up there in age. I think he's in his 30s now. If not, then once again, I'm wrong. But he played very well, I must say, for the role that he was put in. Dion Lewis, not great. He was supposed to be featured as more of a third down receiving back. I don't think he got that many opportunities, but some fumbles in the running game and some fumbles in the kick return game just wasn't the thing for the Giants. And that's why the Giants did not bring him back. So obviously that's a good reason there. Then Devonta Freeman, a lot of people criticize him. Oh, the expected yards per carry and stuff like that. I don't believe in that type of analytics. Obviously, Devonta Freeman, he was an injury-prone running back, so we kind of expected a little bit of the injury towards the end. I think he had a concussion or some type of injury of some sorts, and he was out for the rest of the season. They did not bring him back, which honestly ended up working out for the Giants in a way because Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris were the feature backs, along with Dion Lewis, who was supposed to be coming out of the backfield as receiver. But Devonta Freeman, he was a rental for a couple of weeks, and he did what he had to do. He rushed a little bit in the 49er game. The next week against the Rams. Next week against the Cowboys, he actually rushed for a touchdown. So I didn't have that many issues with him. But, Wayne Gallman, I believe, did a better job than him. So with that being said, now you move to the upgrade. And also, real quickly, let's actually talk about the offensive line, which had multiple combinations. Not that many like the years past, but obviously the rotational system kind of factored in as well. Left tackle Andrew Thomas, some snaps actually Matt Parrott. Left guard Will Hernandez and Shane Lemieux. Center Nick Gates. Spencer Pulley didn't play at all. And I'm actually kind of surprised because the Giants signed Pulley to a 3-year contract extension going back to 2019 in March especially. I remember sitting at lunch and finding out that Spencer Pulley had signed an extension. And I'm surprised, I saw on the roster and stuff, he's not here anymore? That was not even 3 years. But obviously, I guess things happen on the inside or people were lying. I don't know. With that being said, right guard had a mix of Kevin Zeitler and Shane Lemieux. Obviously, Shane Lemieux got snaps there when Zeitler was hurt in the Eagles game, but once again, the next week was a bye week, so he came back fresh and well after. Right tackle, Cameron Fleming and Matt Parrott. I like Matt Parrott, obviously. I think he could be good for us in the future. You got to trust your young guys. Cameron Fleming was a 1-year rental, but I honestly would prefer Mike Remmers over Fleming. I think Fleming, his best thing was run blocking. I'm not too sure. I'm not that type of guy who watches film. But I'm not necessarily a fan of Fleming, but once again, he was a 1-year rental. You can't really expect much out of him. With that being said, also, let's go to the other wide receivers coming into this year now. You got Kenny Golladay, the receiver from the Lions, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, your first-round pick, John Ross, the former first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's getting basically a 1-year prove-it deal. We'll see if he gets cut after the preseason because that's always possible. Dante Pettis coming off a good 2 games to end the year last year. Darius Slayton once again. Kyle Rudolph, the tight end red zone target, as Chisel Adonis, the comedian, calls him Rudolph the red zone reindeer. Levine Toilolo coming back. Ingram Smith. And then you also look at running backs. You got Corey Clement. They cut Raquel Armstead, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Booker. If I'm missing anybody, I think I'm not. And this is I'm not outlining all the receivers, but I'm outlining who I think could make the roster and have the best chance. If I'm missing a running back, Gary Brightwell, the 6th-round pick out of Arizona. So obviously there's your weapons there. And let's talk about make-or-break seasons. Obviously, Jason Garrett is in a make-or-break season as a coordinator, and I think he's gone after this year, but I have to explain that in just a second. Make-or-break seasons, Saquon, Sterling Shepard, Daniel Jones, O-line, and Darius Slayton. Let's start with Saquon. If he cannot stay healthy, he's going to not receive an extension, and he's going to be let walk or traded. That's just where it's going to be. He hasn't played a full 16 since his rookie year, which is understandable, but once again, it's not just that. He needs to pass protect, or they need to have a running back that can pass protect on third down. It's probably going to be Booker or Corey Clement. With that being said, in my personal opinion, in my personal view, my personal beef with him is like, if you could find a hole, great. If you can't, you got to stick with the negative 1 yard gain. Don't make it a 5 yard loss. With that being said, Sterling Shepard, he has to stay on the field. If he doesn't, Kadarius Toney is his effective replacement, and the Giants can cut him next year and save a lot of cap money. They're going to be backloading contracts with this new TV deal crap with Amazon and ESPN and whatever. So they're going to have the cap space, at least to hold these contracts going into next year. Dory Jackson, Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, all these contracts, Leonard Williams also as well. But they can also cut Sterling Shepard to say, hey, we can, get some draft picks because they have a lot next year. I think they have close to 10 if I'm not mistaken. If not, once again, I am wrong. With that being said, Darius Slayton, if he's not going to be featured as a starting receiver, which is likely going to happen, he's probably going to be featured as a role player. If he can't handle the role-playing position, whether it be on special teams or just a wide receiver overall, like the fourth, the fifth guy, he's going to get cut either after the preseason or possibly after the regular season. You talk about the O-line, they need to take a big step this season. Shane Lemieux, all the second-year guys coming into the season, they need to take a big step. And if they don't, well, it's going to be a tough time for this offense. It's going to be a tough time for Daniel Jones. Hopefully, the hiring of Rob Sale and Pat Flaherty do the job. It's not just how many O-line coaches going through. There's a rumor, apparently, that a lot of the guys didn't like Digwelmo last year, but he was at temporary. They had some contract issues or whatever. He is now the offensive line coach, I believe, at Louisiana Tech. So that's an interesting thought right there. But the O-line does need to take a crucial step. I'm not going to expect them to be, oh my God, the best unit in the league, but they have to be mid-tier. Last year they gave up 50 sacks, which was second in the NFL. First was the Eagles, and obviously that's a flaw in pass protection. You can't just have, oh my God, it's got to be the run game or nothing. It has to be the passing game, especially with the weapons you have acquired this offseason. With that being said, here's some of the improvements, in my personal opinion, that this offense, Jason Garrett, whoever, needs to make. You need to have a 300-yard passing game. We didn't even get that last year. Now, 300 yards, oh my God, some people come out of the woods as casual fans. Oh, Daniel Jones didn't have a 300-yard passing game last year. They also pull up the 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, but they don't know much else than that because they pull up the stats. Stats don't tell the whole story. With that being said, you do need to have a 300-yard passing game from Daniel Jones. How can you not? I'm not expecting him to have it every game, but if you can't get that done, you're either not the quarterback of the future or your offensive coordinator is doing something wrong. Something is wrong there. And Daniel Jones' highest amount of yards last year in terms of passing was week 1 against the Steelers, 279, and a lot of those went to Darius Slayton. With that being said, that was against a tough defense, and we faced worse defenses down the stretch, but he did not get it done. Not just him, the receivers, stuff like that, you could also throw the blame there. Saquon Barkley needs to be healthy, as I mentioned earlier. 50 sacks, once again, the offensive line has to do better in pass protection. It can't be just the running game. I mentioned the pass rate and the run rate. No Daniel Jones for 2 games. Daniel Jones, once again, has to stay on the field. He has to be healthy. No preseason. Obviously, we're getting a preseason this year, so any new implements on the scheme you have to put in there. We have a preseason now. You could test that in games. I know that preseason offenses and defenses are very vanilla. They're very bland. Obviously, you don't want to give anything away. But in terms of training camp, to test new stuff out, that is always good as well. And we also had mini camps this year and OTAs, so the players ended up showing up. A lot of these teams coming out here, we're going to protest OTAs and mandatory mini camps and stuff like that. Yeah, shut up, because a lot of your players went because they saw what happened to Juwan James. That's where it kicks them right in the ass. But let's keep moving on. Daniel Jones, slim to no turnovers down the stretch. Obviously, you got the Cardinals game and the Cowboys game, but if you saw what Daniel Jones was doing in the Ravens game, I mean, Don Martindale, who's probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the game right now, he was sending all types of guys. He was sending Matt Judon. He was sending all of the guys on his team, and they were wrecking Daniel Jones. Did he turn over the ball? Did he fumble the football? He did not. He did not fumble the football, and he was taking it. Matt Parrott was struggling. The offensive line was struggling. The running backs were struggling trying to pick up the blitz. It was not happening for the Giants that day. But Daniel Jones, he did not fumble. That's something the New York Giants fans that either dislike Daniel Jones or people just randomly forget about it. That Ravens game was extremely tough. One of the best NFL defenses, and he did not fumble. So that's a positive thing to remark down the stretch. Obviously, you had the turnover, Evan Ingram, the next game against the Cowboys. Reliance on the running game down the stretch. Obviously, as I said, stats don't tell the whole story. But Wayne Gallman, and what I mean about that, and I'll go into another topic as well, what I mean about that, but you saw especially in the Eagles game, and this is going to be something in about a minute that I'm going to stress out as well, but in terms of the running game, a lot of people going back to that statistical thing about, Daniel Jones, only 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Well, did you watch the Eagles game? You probably did not. The first Eagles game, the second Eagles game, which we won, by the way. Daniel Jones, great pass to Darius Slayton, great pass to Sterling Shepard, great pass to Golden Tate, great pass down the field to Deion Lewis. A lot of those passes led to touchdowns. A lot of people don't account for that. A lot of people just think, it's the running game. But Jason Garrett and that philosophy that the Giants took for the next couple of weeks was just going into the end zone with the running back. Not passing, not doing stuff like that. It's just running into the end zone. That Evan Ingram play, that went downfield for, 50 yards? It actually happened twice. But the one time, I believe we scored one time, it was actually a field goal. But going on that first Evan Ingram play where he was covered by Von Bell, who ended up getting a fumble off of him later, that's another topic. With that being said, that play led to a Wayne Gallman touchdown on 4th down. So once again, a pass leads to a touchdown, but Daniel Jones doesn't get all the credit because it is in the stat sheet for the running back, not the quarterback. And then I'm pretty sure later on he had a pass downfield to Evan Ingram again, but that was a field goal. And then you even go to the Arizona game. He had a great pass to Golden Tate, and then they scored in with Deion Lewis. So a lot of these touchdowns are because of Daniel Jones, but it's not credited to him because of the running backs taking it in. And listen, that happens. A lot of teams end up doing that. But this year, you need to have a game where it's like, Daniel Jones throws for multiple touchdowns. It can't just be the running game, scoring it in. And I understand if you're close to the goal line, like if it gets you the 1 yard line short. And let me go into another topic that relates a little bit to the Eagles game like I was just talking about. The Giants need to have a game where the offense wins and not the defense. A lot of the games, probably 5 out of 6 last year, other than that Eagles game, in my personal opinion, where defense won. You heavily relied on the defense because of a certain turnover, a special teams mistake, something like that. Defense won games. Let's talk about it. Week 6 against the Washington football team. Daniel Jones throws an interception to Kendall Fuller in the back of the end zone. Whether we like the call or not, it was an interception. Tate Crowder takes a forced fumble by Kyler Fackrell into the end zone for a touchdown. You take a look at, I believe it was week 9 against Washington where we got our second win. Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Blake Martinez, those guys getting the interceptions. Daniel Jones did throw for a touchdown that game, but once again, defense wins that game because of how many times they've been picking off Alex Smith. It was 3 interceptions, though he threw for over 340 yards. Some other games. Week 17 against the Cowboys. Daniel Jones throws it to Ingram, pops out of his hands into the hands of Donovan Wilson for an interception. With that being said, Leonard Williams forces the pressure. Xavier McKinney gets the interception. With that being said, going back to the Bengals game, defensive one, once again. You take a look, Daniel Jones comes out, Colt McCoy comes back in, even though the offense wasn't necessarily doing anything to the extent of what they did on the first drive, scoring into the end zone, they weren't really heating up. But once again, what was the cause of that win? What effectively won that game? The defense. That was the Jabal Sheard sack and the fumble recovery by Leonard Williams. That is what I'm talking about. A lot of people have actually criticized me for saying that. Well, it's true. We can't be having too many games this year where the defense solidly carries us because down the stretch it will hurt us. So, a couple improvements there. But with that being said, here is the fate of Jason Garrett that I'm going to talk about as the final topic. It's make or break for him, obviously. And he's gone either way after this season, my personal opinion. Unless we have some middle-ranked offense like 13th, and Daniel Jones is the quarterback and they keep him on, or he doesn't get hired or whatever, a team is not impressed. If this offense does as badly as last year, or possibly slightly better, but it's not great, like in the 20s, the low 20s, the early 30s maybe, he is fired. I'm telling you that right now. At that point, there is no reason to keep Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback unless the Giants say, hey, you know what, let's give him another year, let's finish out the contract, see what he does. He will be fired at that point. Jason Garrett will be fired, and I think even if you go down that stretch, you're going to realize that even in season that the offense is not good. They may fire him from there and have Freddie Kitchens or Russ Callaway or somebody take over as the offensive coordinator. And then if this offense does top 10, he's gone. Why is he gone? Because there's going to be coaching vacancies, whether it be the Broncos, whether it be the Texans, whether it be the Cowboys. Well, not the Cowboys because he already coached for them. There's a lot of teams out there that have their coaches on the hot seat. Maybe Chicago's another place because they have a rookie quarterback, and maybe Matt Nagy gets fired. Who knows? They might need an offensive guy once again. Jason Garrett could be that guy as the offensive-minded head coach coming off of a top 10 season per simulation. We're just doing this as a simulation or just drawing conclusions, doing whatever, just making it up for the reason of simulation. But there is a chance, if it's top 10, he's gone. He's going to be the next head coach of some other team. I know a lot of Giants fans wanted him gone to the Chargers, but they hired Brandon Staley, the former defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Rams. We'll see how he does out there. We actually face him this season. But it's hire or possibly fire. Jason Garrett gets hired by another team as the head coach, or possibly he gets fired by the Giants and is looking for a new job elsewhere. With that being said, guys, if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification button so you get notified when the live stream pops or video drops. Going to do another series recap with Sox Arizona, whether it's on his channel or mine. I will let you guys know. With that being said, Boys in Big Apple podcast Monday. I should have an announcement in terms of this memory stream. I'm going to make a trailer for it, and you guys will find out the date from there. So with that being said, guys, peace out. See you later. Go Giants and go Yankees.